During our holiday poker game, my cousin Brody suddenly declared that playing like this was boring. He wanted to play big. He tossed his ramp key onto the table with a loud metallic clatter that silenced everyone. His grin stretched wide, the kind that made my skin crawl. "This is boring," he announced. "Let's play big. Anyone dare to match this?" He leaned back like a king waiting for peasants to kneel. I knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted everyone to stare at the symbol of his precious truck. And they did. My cousins froze, mouths half open. "Brody, come on, we're just playing for fun," someone said. "We wouldn't dare match that." Then they switched to flattery almost instantly. Compliments spilled out about how impressive a truck he had, how at his age no one else could drive such a beast. The air smelled of fear and pride, a terrible mix. I stared at my hand. Trip Kings. A solid monster of a hand. My heart thudded once, heavy. When Brody reached for the deck, soaking up everyone's praise, I made my move. I pulled out my own key and placed it beside his. "I'll match it," I said calmly. The room snapped silent. It felt as if the lights dimmed, as if the air leaned in to listen. Brody's eyes widened, shock twisting into something sharper. Any hint of family loyalty vanished between us in that moment. He sneered. "How much money do you even have in your pocket? Think you're scaring me?" He tapped the ramp key like it was a weapon. "This is a Ram T-Rex, kid. Go scrape some real money together. You think you can hustle me with your beat-up Kia?" His words stung, but not enough to make me fold. I had always hated playing with him, especially during the holidays. Everyone came home to relax, but Brody treated poker like a battlefield. He bet big, always bigger than anyone could handle. When we dropped $5, he would casually throw in 500. Anyone who plays cards knows the truth. The poor have no dignity in front of the rich. Tonight I was tired of being poor in front of him. I turned to Molly. My fiancée had been sitting quietly beside me, her long hair brushing her shoulders, her face calm even as the table held its breath. We were getting married soon. She wore the engagement set we had saved so long to buy, 5 pieces of gold. "Put your ring and the Rolex on the table," I told her softly. She looked at me, searching my face. She didn't ask what cards I held. She trusted me. Without hesitation, she removed the jewelry and the watch, one piece at a time, and set them beside the keys. The sound was quiet, but it felt like thunder. A thought flashed through me. With a partner like this, I could face the world without regret. I turned back to Brody. "That's enough value now. Shall we open the cards?" Brody's expression twisted. He gritted his teeth, fury simmering under his skin. He had never expected me to challenge him, not in front of the whole family. "Cousin," he said with a mocking sigh. "Don't blame me later. If I lose a truck, it's nothing. But if you lose everything, how will your family eat?" I met his gaze steadily. "Don't worry about us. We have ways to survive. Besides, didn't you tell my dad at dinner that I don't have guts? Well, here I am." Brody's face turned the color of storm clouds. I had never provoked him before, but tonight, he had crossed a line. At dinner, he had taken a jab at me, mocking the fact that I didn't earn as much as he did, talking with that smug tone about how I was too timid to succeed in big business. Not like him, the self-proclaimed boss of the family. Halfway through his bragging, my dad had stepped up to light Brody's cigar. A gesture of respect. A gesture Brody ignored. He didn't even shield the flame from the breeze. Outsiders wouldn't understand, but in our family, failing to cup your hands when an elder lights your smoke is disrespect. It screamed, "I look down on you." My dad had pretended not to notice, but I had seen his jaw tighten. Now the same relatives watched with tight nerves as Brody took a long breath. "If you want to play," he said slowly, "then let's play bigger. That's the only way I get a thrill." He slammed his cards face down, covered them with a plate, and walked straight out the window. Through the glass we saw him stride to his truck, yank out a metal briefcase, and return like a soldier marching into war. When he opened the case, the room gasped. Stacks of cash, neatly arranged, gleaming under the dim lights. "There's $50,000 here," Brody declared. "Do you dare follow?" His voice rang through the living room like a challenge no one wanted. The commotion drew the elders. Uncle Don rushed over, panic in his eyes. "Are you insane? That's the advance payment for the factory project. You can't gamble that." Brody smiled up at him, smug and unbothered. "It's fine, Dad. I can handle it. I just doubt my little cousin can keep up." And suddenly everything clicked. His plan. From the start he had emphasized no betting limit. He was going to raise the stakes until I collapsed, until he could strip me clean in front of everyone. It was never about the cards. It was about crushing me. What's the matter? Out of money? He taunted. If you can't follow, everything you bet is mine. No refunds. Uncle Don exhaled with relief, understanding Brody's trap. He returned to the card table with the elders, pretending none of this concerned him. I clenched my fists under the table. I didn't have 50,000. I didn't have even close. Then Molly's voice cut through the room.
It's fine, she said.
We'll bet the wedding house. Everything stopped. Cards, breath, even time. The elders froze mid-game. Someone dropped a chip that clattered on the floor. Uncle Don bit down on his cigar, forgetting to breathe. Brody stared as if Molly had slapped him. The wedding house. Our future home. Worth 200,000. My dad rushed over, face pale. His voice shook as he grabbed my shoulders. Are you out of your mind? You want to make us homeless? He tried to peek at my cards, but I slammed my palm down over them. I couldn't let even my father see. One twitch, one flicker, and Brody would read everything. Under my hand, the cards felt hot. Trip kings. A war hand. Only trip aces could bury me. Brody had started this battle, and now the whole family knew it. With trip kings, you either win big or lose everything. Molly didn't flinch. She looked Brody straight in the eye, her voice steady. The wedding house is worth 200 grand. Your move. That's 50 more than your cash. Do you call or fold? The words had barely left my mouth when Uncle Don erupted. Are you all insane? He shouted, throwing himself across the table as if trying to smother a fire. Chips spilled everywhere. He tried to sweep back the valuables Molly and I had placed down. Stop provoking your cousin, he roared at me. He's a boss. He doesn't want to destroy you. Apologize to him right now. You still want him to help you in the future, don't you? Something hot snapped inside me. I caught Uncle Don's wrist and pushed him back down into a seat. Put everything back on the table, I shouted. His eyes went wide with shock, almost fear. He had never seen me raise my voice at an elder. When he bet 500 earlier, nobody said a word, I said through clenched teeth. When he bragged at dinner, when he made my father light his cigar like a servant, none of you said a thing. Now that he bet his car first, I'm playing this to the end. Uncle Don stared at me as though I had grown horns. How dare you talk to an elder like that? I turned to Brody, ignoring everyone else. Either you match the full 50 grand, or you fold and lose everything. Or we cancel the game right now. And if we cancel, everyone takes back their money, and you get on your knees and apologize to my father. A cold stillness gripped the room. No one even breathed. They remembered the scene at dinner. Brody leaning back smugly with a cigar between his lips, my father stepping forward to light it, the flame flickering under the breeze while Brody didn't even lift a hand to shield it. The silent disrespect. The humiliation. And worst of all, Uncle Don's smirk. Brody let out a laugh, harsh and full of disbelief. You think you can act arrogant in front of the family? I shook my head. The moment you put your keys on the table, we stopped being family. He paused. His jaw tightened. Then he sneered. Fine. Fine. Don't blame me for hustling you. You wanted to follow, right? He flipped two of his cards. A pair of queens. A weight fell off my chest, but I kept my face cold. Steady. He couldn't know I had just been released from my biggest fear, tripped aces. Brody leaned back with a smug grin. Go on, take a guess. My third card, is it a queen? Do I have trips showing half your hand? Classic intimidation. He was trying to shake me, to see if I flinched. He couldn't scare me even with tripped queens. My kings outranked him. And if he had aces, he would never have tried to bluff. He had shown too much. Brody was walking straight into his own trap. I'm betting you're bluffing, I said quietly. So tell me, do you call or not? He stared at me, eyes narrowing, trying to pick apart my expression. It was no longer about cards. It was a duel of nerves. Uncle Don leaned into him, whispering urgently. Don't bet anymore. Can't you see he isn't scared? Brody's face twisted. If I don't bet, I lose everything on the table. He must be bluffing. Everyone watched, silent as statues. No one dared risk a word. One comment, one slip, and they could accidentally influence the game. It felt as if the room itself was holding its breath. Brody scanned the faces around him. He could feel his reputation crumbling. If he folded now, he would be a joke in the family. The boss who backed down. His pride was worth more to him than cash. Finally, he snapped his fingers at his wife. Lana, come here. Lana stepped forward reluctantly, face stiff. Brody motioned to the table. Put it all down. Her jewelry was heavier, brighter, more expensive than Molly's, but unlike Molly, she hesitated. Her fingers curled protectively over her bangles. Brody panicked, grabbed her arm, and quickly revealed his third card to her. Whatever she saw made her expression change instantly. Her eyes brightened, a spark of greedy excitement lighting up her whole face. Lana's hesitation vanished. She stripped off her gold bracelets and necklaces in a frenzy and slammed them onto the pile. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. All right then, let's take this to the end. No regrets. Everyone here is a witness. Anyone who backs out rots in hell. She spat the words like a curse. Are we ready to open? I asked. No, Lana shrieked, vibrating with excitement. We're still betting. Both sides were nearly out of valuables, but she wanted blood. Greed glowed in her eyes like a fever. Suddenly, she yanked the diamond ring off her finger and tossed it onto the pile. This is worth $5,000. I shook my head. To me, it's worth $100. Lana's face twisted. Are you stupid? Do you know brands? This is a drug ring. A man can only buy one in his whole life. Lana, I said coldly, I don't care about brands. I don't recognize it. To me, it's worth 100. She lunged forward, ready to explode in insults, but Brody slammed a hand on the table. Then I bet my house. The room erupted. Don't do it. Uncle Don screamed. That house is worth $250,000. Brody sneered. Dad, I'm not insane. If I bet big, he has to match me. That's the rule. Each raise has to be higher than the last. His eyes locked onto mine with predatory focus. Cousin, do you have the money to keep following? Silence wrapped around me. I had nothing left to wager. Not money. Not property. Not anything that could match a house. Brody saw it immediately, triumph spreading across his face like oil. He laughed. A loud, booming laugh. He leaned forward, clapping my shoulder with mock sympathy. Sometimes people just can't afford to play, he said. Let me be honest. I'm bullying you because you're poor. But what can you do about it? He lowered his voice to a whisper sharp enough to cut. You can bet your life. But even that isn't worth enough, is it? The room held its breath, waiting for me to crumble. Brody's words hung in the air like poison, and I could feel every eye on me, measuring my defeat. Then my father stood up. His chair scraped against the floor, loud in the suffocating silence. He walked to the table slowly, each step deliberate, his face carved from stone. When he reached me, he didn't look at Brody. He looked only at me. Use the pharmacy, he said quietly. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. The pharmacy. Our family business for 30 years. The place where my father had worked 16-hour days, where my mother had counted pills behind the counter while pregnant with me, where I had done homework in the back room surrounded by the smell of medicine and my parents' dreams. Dad, no. It's worth $300,000, he continued, his voice steady, but his hands shaking. More than enough to match his house. Uncle Don shot to his feet. Brother, you can't be serious. That's your livelihood. My father finally turned to look at him. When you watched your son disrespect me at dinner, where was your concern then? The accusation landed like a slap. Uncle Don's face went red, then pale. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came. My father placed both hands on my shoulders. I know you have a good hand, he said softly, meant only for me. I've watched you play cards since you were 12. I know your tells. And I know Brody's. He's scared. That's why he's trying to push you out with money instead of just opening the cards. He was right. If Brody truly had trip queens or better, he would have called immediately. The longer he delayed, the more desperate his bluff became. The pharmacy is yours, my father said, stepping back. Bet it. Molly reached for my hand under the table and squeezed. Her palm was sweaty, but her grip was iron. I looked at Brody. His confident smirk had frozen slightly, uncertainty creeping in at the edges. I match your house, I said, with my father's pharmacy. 300,000. Your move. Brody's face cycled through emotions like a broken slot machine. Shock, rage, calculation, panic. Beside him, Lana had gone completely still, her earlier excitement curdling into something that looked like fear. You're insane, Brody said, but his voice cracked on the last word. Your entire family's insane. Open the cards then, I said. Or fold. The trap was closing around him. Everyone in the room could see it now. If he had trip queens or better, he would call. If he folded, he'd lose everything on the table, his reputation shattered. But calling meant risking his house against a hand he couldn't read. Uncle Don grabbed Brody's arm. Son, think about this. Brody shook him off violently. Get off me. His breathing had gone shallow and fast. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool evening air. I watched him spiral, watched the mathematics of poker collide with the mathematics of pride. He had shown me a pair of queens. He had bet, as if he had trips. But if he truly had trips, why was he hesitating? Because he didn't have them. He had a pair and hope, and he'd painted himself into a corner with his own arrogance. I'll give you one chance, I said quietly.
Fold now.
Take your loss. Walk away. It was the worst thing I could have said. Offering him mercy only highlighted how much he needed it. Brody's eyes went wild. You think I'm scared of you? You think I'll back down? He flipped his third card face up with a sharp crack of paper on wood. Not a queen. A 7 of diamonds. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Lana made a strangled sound, her hand flying to her mouth. Uncle Don collapsed back into his chair, as if shot. Brody had been bluffing with a pair of queens and a 7 kicker. A decent hand. A hand that could win against most casual players. But not against trip kings. Open your cards, Brody said hoarsely. His face had gone gray. Open them now. I flipped my cards slowly, one at a time. King of hearts. King of spades. King of clubs. The room exploded. People jumped to their feet, shouting, laughing, crying. Someone knocked over a drink. My aunt screamed. The noise was overwhelming, like standing inside a storm. But I only watched Brody. He stared at my cards as if they were written in a foreign language. His mouth opened and closed soundlessly. All the blood had drained from his face, leaving him the color of old paper. Lana started sobbing, loud wailing sobs that cut through the celebration. No, 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 no. Brody stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. For a moment, I thought he might lunge across the table at me. His hands clenched into fists, his entire body rigid with rage and shock. Then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed. It was a horrible sound, broken and bitter, with an edge of hysteria. Trip kings, he said, the words coming out like broken glass. Trip fucking kings. You sat there with trip kings and let me bet myself into the ground. You made the bets, I said. I just called them. You hustled me. His voice rose to a shout. You hustled me in front of the whole family. My father stepped forward, positioning himself between us. You put your keys on the table first. You made this a war. My son just won it. The truth of it settled over the room like ash. Everyone had witnessed Brody's arrogance, his mockery, his deliberate attempts to humiliate me. They had watched him try to crush someone with less money through sheer financial bullying. And they had watched it backfire spectacularly. Uncle Don sat with his head in his hands, groaning. The other relatives didn't know where to look. Brody swept everything off the table with one violent motion. Keys, cash, jewelry all went flying, scattering across the floor. Take it, he screamed. Take it all, you fucking vulture. Brody. Uncle Don started. And you. Brody whirled on his father. You encouraged this. You smiled when I was winning. Where's your fucking wisdom now? He stormed toward the door, Lana scrambling after him, still crying. At the threshold, he turned back one last time. His eyes found mine across the room, and in them I saw something I'd never seen before in Brody.
Fear.
Not of losing money or property. Fear of what this meant. Fear that the natural order he'd counted on, where he sat at the top and I scraped at the bottom, had just been shattered beyond repair. This isn't over, he said quietly. Then he was gone. I didn't sleep that night. Molly and I sat in our small apartment, the pile of Brody's belongings stacked on our kitchen table like evidence from a crime scene. The Ram T-Rex keys. The briefcase of cash. Lana's jewelry gleaming under the overhead light. The deed to Brody's house, which Uncle Don had silently retrieved and left with us before disappearing into the night. Do you regret it? Molly asked as dawn light started creeping through the windows. I thought about it. Thought about Brody's face. Uncle Don's shame. My father's trembling hands when he'd offered up the pharmacy. No, I said. But I'm scared of what comes next. She nodded. Me too. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. Family meeting.
Noon.
Your grandmother's house. Everyone will be there. I showed Molly the message. She read it and sighed. Here we go. My grandmother's house smelled like incense and old wood, familiar and suffocating. The whole family had gathered, 30 people crammed into a living room meant for 10. The air was thick with tension and unspoken accusations. Brody sat in the corner, still pale, Lana beside him with swollen eyes. Uncle Don stood near the window, unable to meet anyone's gaze. My father sat across from them, his face unreadable. My grandmother, 86 years old and sharp as a knife, presided over it all from her chair like a judge at trial. Sit, she commanded when Molly and I entered. We sat. She looked at me with eyes that had witnessed 3 generations of family drama. You won a lot of money last night. Yes, grandmother. And you humiliated your cousin in front of everyone. He humiliated himself, I said quietly. I just played the hand I was dealt. Brody's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Your father told me what happened at dinner, grandmother continued. How Brody disrespected him. How Uncle Don allowed it. She turned her gaze to them. They both flinched. Is this true? Uncle Don opened his mouth, but she raised one hand, silencing him. I've watched this family for 8 decades, she said. I've seen pride destroy more than you can imagine. Brody, you thought because you made money, you could treat others as lesser. You forgot that money comes and goes, but family remains. Grandmother, I didn't mean. You meant every word. Her voice cracked like a whip. You wanted to prove you were better than your cousin. You wanted to crush him. Well, congratulations. Now you have nothing. Lana started crying again. Brody stared at the floor. Grandmother turned back to me.
And you.
You could have folded. You could have let his arrogance pass. Why didn't you? I met her eyes. Because I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of working hard and staying quiet while people like Brody take credit for luck and inheritance. I'm tired of watching my father bow to disrespect because he's too kind to fight back. The room was silent. So you fought back, grandmother said. And now the family is split. Was it worth it? The question hung in the air like smoke. I looked around a room at my family. At my aunts and uncles watching with bated breath. At my cousins torn between loyalty and justice. At Brody and Lana, broken and furious. At Uncle Don, drowning in shame. At my father, his eyes wet but his back straight. At Molly, who had bet our future without hesitation because she trusted me. I'll give everything back, I said. The room exploded in shocked whispers. Brody's head snapped up. What? The house. The truck. The jewelry. The money. I reached into my bag and pulled out the deed, the keys, the cash. Set them on the coffee table. Take it all back. I don't want it. Have you lost your mind? Someone whispered. No, I said. I found my terms. Brody, you can have everything back on 3 conditions. He stared at me, suspicious and desperate. What conditions? First, you apologize to my father.
Properly.
On your knees. Brody's face went red, but Uncle Don grabbed his shoulder, nodding urgently. Second, the $50,000 in that briefcase doesn't belong to you. It's advance payment for a factory project. You were gambling with other people's money, other people's livelihoods. That money goes back to the factory workers. You find another way to pay them. Uncle Don closed his eyes, looking sick. Brody said nothing. Third, you never gamble again. Not with our family. Not at our gatherings. No more using money as a weapon. You want to be a boss?
Be one.
But don't confuse wealth with worth. The room held its breath. And if I refuse? Brody asked hoarsely. Then I keep everything, I said. I sell your house. I drive your truck. I give your jewelry to Molly. And you tell everyone for the rest of your life how you lost it all because you couldn't say sorry. Grandmother made a small sound that might have been approval. Brody looked at his father. Uncle Don looked at my father. My father looked at me with something like pride. Slowly, like a man walking to the gallows, Brody stood. He crossed the room. And in front of everyone, in front of 30 witnesses, he lowered himself to his knees before my father. I'm sorry, he said, and his voice broke. I'm sorry for disrespecting you. I'm sorry for forgetting that you're my elder, my uncle, my family. I'm sorry. My father reached down and pulled him to his feet. Apology accepted. Brody turned to me, tears streaming down his face now. And I'm sorry to you. You're right. I used money as a weapon. I forgot what matters. I handed him the deed and the keys. Kept only the $50,000. The factory workers get paid tomorrow, I said. Uncle Don, you make sure of it. He nodded mutely. Grandmother stood, groaning as her joints protested. She walked to me, cupped my face in her wrinkled hands. You played the best hand of all, she said softly. You won by choosing when to lose. The family dinner the following week was different. Brody came, but he was quieter, humbler. When my father spoke, Brody listened. When jokes were made at his expense, he laughed along. Uncle Don pulled me aside as people were leaving. Thank you, he said quietly, for not destroying my son.
I didn't do it for him, I said.
I did it for us. For the family we could still be. He nodded, gripped my shoulder, and left. Molly and I drove home in our old Kia, the one Brody had mocked. The engine rattled and the heater barely worked, but it was ours. You know what the funny thing is? Molly said as we pulled into our apartment complex. You never needed to win that hand. What do you mean? You already had everything that mattered. A father who would bet his life's work to support you. A fiancé who trusted you enough to risk our home. A family who, underneath all the dysfunction, still loved each other enough to come back together. She was right. The Trip Kings hadn't won the real game. The real game had been about dignity, respect, and knowing when strength means letting go. I looked at the engagement ring back on her finger, gleaming in the streetlight. Let's go home, I said. And we did. Epilogue. 6 months later, Molly and I got married. Brody attended with Lana, and they gave us a generous gift. The pharmacy still belonged to my father. The Ram T-Rex still sat in Brody's driveway. The family still gathered for holidays. But something had changed. The unspoken hierarchies, the casual cruelties, the weaponization of wealth, they had lost their power. We played poker sometimes, during those gatherings. But only for chips and laughter. And Brody never bet more than he could afford to lose. Because the last hand we played taught us all the same lesson. In poker, as in life, the real game isn't about the cards you're dealt. It's about knowing when to hold them, when to fold them, and when to walk away from the table entirely.